Hello, I'm Robert. Welcome back to our art sessions. This one will be another Bob Ross painting inspired by his northern northern scene and of a waterfall. We're going to do ours a tiny bit different, but it's based on his same process, of course, and with the same ideas that he had. So mine is going to be a little bit more on the northern waterfall since my in Michigan, since that's where my hometown was for 20 some odd years, 26, 27 years. I've traveled throughout the West and North and South and overseas. But this will be based about my evergreens are a little bit more Michigan-ish, and his are more northern, northwestern. But anyway, they'll be they'll work quite well for you. And let me show you right now what we have going on. I'll take my guys down. And we'll put Bob behind the curtain too. Okay. All right, so we started off with a 16, my standard 16 by 20, 16 by 20 double prime canvas. On top of that, I put some gesso. So I took a kind of I took a sea sponge of gesso, and I also used a one of those inexpensive black flat brushes, foam brushes that you get at an art store to make the background on that. But I mainly tapped in a lot of different values in here of the black gesso to form my trees up top and on the side. After I let that completely dry, I put around the course of me, even before that, this is something that you may not want to do. I put some masking tape around it because I like to have a border when I'm done. So you may not want that, but if you do, put a strip of masking tape around the edges of it, and that'll give it a border when we're finished with it. We'll take it off and it'll have a nice white border, hopefully. Okay, so then again, I tapped in some with the foam brush and then with my sea sponge, some patterns of some trees up here. And then this, on top of this, I put a very, very thin coat of the liquid clear, super clear. It's got to be thin. If you have too much, it'll start sliding off. So even once you put it on there, you might want to take a paper towel and just touch it and just rub it in a tiny bit into the canvas, but don't make it shiny and don't make it thick or else all your paints are going to flow down there. So I can't emphasize that much enough. The least amount of liquid clear on there. So I've done all that. Then I put a mixture of phthalo blue, a little bit of phthalo blue, some sap green, and a little bit of Van Dyke. I made a mixture of that, and I put that in this section. Again, a very, very thin coat into this section. You can see a little bit of sap green coming into here, but it's a sap green, a little bit of dark sienna, and some phthalo blue in there. So just to get a little flavor of woods in there. So Prussian blue, Van Dyke, sap green in this section, and then I've just got that ready to go. So that's what our background is going to be. Let me show you the colors that I have to make this painting. So I have up top, I have my titanium white. This is the phthalo blue. This is Prussian blue. This is a little bit of black. Here's some dark sienna. Here's some Van Dyke over here. I have the cadmium red going on, a mixture of that. I have the sap green down here. I have the cad yellow, Indian yellow, and ochre. So that's our basic palette. That we're going to be using. So, our first step in this painting is we're going to begin with the sky. And in this case, I'm going to take my 1-inch brush, and you don't need too much paint on this, just a very small amount on the edge. And in my case, I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to put a little mixture of mauve. I made a little bit of mauve in here, crimson with blue, little blue. So I'm just going to tap in. You can see I'm just going to tap a little bit of that, very, very small amount, into the edge. You just push it up, tap it in, and then I'm going to come up and begin in my top portion. And we're going to make little X strokes. Just X strokes. Come down here. I want a little bit darker in the corners. And I don't want to lose, I don't want to make it flat like we're painting a wall in your home. So I want a little bit of this action things in here, a little bit of whites in there. A little bit darker in the corners. That'll throw your eye down into your painting. Now come down here. Across our trees that we've made. X's. Okay. So you can see in the corners, I have a little bit darker, as I said, to throw your eye back down into the painting. So with that in mind, I'm going to clean the brush. We clean our brush in odorless paint thinner. I have a can over here with a little bit of a screen at the end of it. So I dip it into my liquid odorless paint thinner, and then I tap it out into a trash can, the excess, and then I've made a brush beater rack that I have below here too. And that's, or if you don't have that, you can have a little bit of a wire rack that you can get at a hardware store or from bobross.com. And you can beat the brush or sat, put it in a trash can with maybe a plastic liner, and then you can beat it across. So I'm going to dip it into my odorless paint thinner. And then I'm tapping it. I'm tapping across a brush beater rack down here. Then I'm going to come over here with my titanium white, and I'm just going to tap in mostly on the corners. I'm just tapping in some titanium white. And then I'm going to use with the corner of the brush, I'm going to just start tapping in a little bit of a cloud pattern. Across here. Maybe it drifts down here a little bit. We can go right across. We can go right across our little evergreen trees. That'll put them in the mist. Okay, I'm going to clean the brush a little bit. And then I'm going to lightly blend. I'm going to lift up. I'm going to keep the brush clean so I can use my paper towel on this stage. So I'm going to lift up. I'm going to leave the edges up here, but inside here I'm just going to, with the very light corner of the brush, just suggest a little bit of a fog and cloud pattern, of course. Then I'll lift again and almost circular motions. And I'll lightly go across. Okay. And then we'll go across and lightly, very lightly touch it across. We just want that nice cloud, foggy pattern across there. Now I'm going to, again, tap into my white with just the corner of my brush. Just the corner. And I'll suggest a little bit of a cloud in here too. Get these distant, we're putting these distant pine trees setting them back. Then I'll clean my brush out a little bit. I just do this with a paper towel, and then I'll lightly blend. I'll lift up, go across, tap a little bit more. Just to suggest a cloud that may be drifting across our trees. It's a pretty big cloud, but it should work. Up and across. Okay, so that'll suggest a little bit of nice mist across our upper section. Okay, so we've got these nice soft clouds up there. So we'll proceed. So now I think I'll look at the painting here. And we're doing a waterfall. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to load this this brush up with some titanium white fan brush. And I'm going to come across and decide where that little waterfall is going to be. So I'll come up here and just kind of go across here and have it fall a little bit. I'll press the brushes up to get a little bit of a splash. Then I'm going to come in here with just a hint of blue. So we've got a little hint of blue on there. And I'll come down into this section, and then we'll go root and then straight down. On, straight down. You don't want to keep on going over that waterfall because you'll lose a lot of, it won't look right. You'll lose the nice texture that you have. So you don't want to keep on going over and over and over it. Splash, little splashes here. Okay, so that's about as far as you'll want to go with your waterfall. You can lift up a few splashes. So now you have a nice waterfall coming down. So we're going to clean this brush up. This is a little bit easier brush to clean. I don't have to bang it across. I just put in the liquid odorless paint thinner, and that will do it. So now we want to seal in that waterfall so it doesn't splash out. So we're going to come back up here again with I'm going to take some dark sienna. No, I think here's sienna. I'm going to take a little sienna with my Van Dyke. Van Dyke is the darker brown, chocolatey brown. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to build a little bit of a rock formation. It's pretty hard for you to see, but once we highlight it, you'll see. So we've kind of and then we'll come back on the other side. Same thing, we're taking some more Van Dyke, a little sienna. And we'll seal the other corner. We'll be highlighting these, as I said, in a minute. But we want to get our darks in first. Make this rock come out. Make him come out here. So I'm going to set the palette down. We had a little bit this go over our white, so this is how we correct that. Come back here. Then I come back with some more. Touch. And we'll come right down. So we have our nice waterfall going on there. And then at the bottom of that waterfall, we're going to have some splashes in a minute. But at this point, we're going to come back with our highlight colors on these rocks. So I'm going to grab some titanium white, a little bit of raw sienna, a little bit of Van Dyke, and I'm going to make a marble color here. I'm going to cut across with a little bit of paint on the end of it, and then just suggest some, this is the top of our rocks. Come back on the other side, just touch. So we have the top of our cliffs. I'm really just touching and lifting up. So that'll be the top of our cliffs. So now we're going to come back, and I'm going to take a little bit of titanium white, put that over here, so black, and a blue. And we're just going to suggest a few rocks coming down that. I've just got a little, again, I took my titanium white, a tiny bit of black, a little bit of blue, and I just made a marble color. And I'm barely touching this. I'm just pulling it down. No pressure. No pressure, just pushing, pulling it down, barely touching. And at the same time, we're pushing back that waterfall. Okay, so we have a rock formation there. We have the waterfall coming down. Just a little bit more over here on top. Just touch it. Okay. Now, I'm going to clean my palette knife off. With my clean, dry brush, I'm just going to lightly lift up the waterfall to smooth it from the bottom up. We'll just smooth it out. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit more of this dark mixture and we'll just add a little bit of a rock in there. Then we'll highlight it. I'm going to come back with my fan brush. I've grabbed a little more of that white, and we'll just come back down and we'll just seal that rock in. So now we have a little bit of a rock formation. Right down, swish. Okay. I'm going to add just a little touch of blue or white. And give it a nice hint of color. Okay, so now we have, eventually we're going to put our splashes in there. And we're going to add some nice evergreen trees. So I'm going to take my 1-inch brush and I'm just going to take the corner, just get a little bit of a titanium white in there, and I'm just going to splash this up a little bit. Just tapping in some nice little foamy things. I'm going to leave a lot of the splattering, but I'm going to soften this just a little bit. with the corner of the brush. I just want to get a little bit of a foam effect. Okay. So we have that portion. Now we're going to come back with our fan brush. I'm going to take the fan brush and load it with one of my darks, maybe a little bit of black, dark sienna, Van Dyke. And I'm going to come at this section over here, and we're just going to build a few evergreen trees. I put a line, a guiding line down here, and then I do some zigzags. Another one over here. I just start by putting an edge on there for a guide. Then just the very corner of that brush. Keep on coming down. You can put as many of these as you wish in your painting. Put another one over here. Okay, we'll go on the other side. This is a lot of Van Dyke, Van Dyke Brown, and Midnight Black. Put as many of these as you wish in your painting. And you just kind of stand back and decide how many you want. And we'll start bring those branches down into our dark area. Okay. So we'll just add a couple more. Put one more in this corner here, filled in. Now I'm going to clean the brush. Clean the brush up. And we'll put on some highlights. So we'll come in here. Maybe we'll take a little bit of this cad yellow. Cad yellow here. Grab here, a little green. And I'm just going to highlight these evergreens. I don't want much, they're kind of in the background. As you pick up some, if you're picking up some black in there, you hit the edge of your fan brush. And we don't want to, as I said, we don't want to overdo these, but we want to have a little bit of color on them. Come on the left hand side, start building some over here. And we keep on going across. If your colors do not stick for some reason, you know, our theory is a thin paint will stick to a thick paint. If you're not getting it to come off, then you can either dip your brush into a tiny, tiny bit of liquid clear, or you could go into our liquid white. So you're getting some nice values across the top there. Okay, so you have kind of a nice tree line. So I'm going to clean my brush again. And then we're going to build some nice shrubs in that section. Okay. So again, continue to look at where you're going with your painting, where you could need some additional pine trees, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to clean my fan brush while I take a peek at it. So cleaning the fan brush. So I want to seal in these rock formations with some nice shrubs. So I'm going to take my 1-inch brush, I'm going to pull it through the darks, and I'm going to just push in and pulling it across. I get that rounded end. Right here's the rounded end. Lots of paint in there. And I'm just hitting the corner. And I'm just filling in some darks. I've added a little bit of blue into it, picking up a lot of that color underneath. We're going to come back in here and highlight these in a minute. So I have that in there now. So I'm going to clean my brush again. And I'm going to we'll create some highlights on our foliage. So to do that, I'm going to use my liquid white. Liquid white tapped in. I'll show you. We got some nice liquid white here. It's a thinner version of our titanium white. And I'm just going to make some nice highlights. Just tap, tap, tapping into that brush. And then I'm going to come in this section and just tap in some nice values. Nice foliage. I'll go on the other side and just touch. Pull. Again, liquid white. I drag the brush to the liquid white and my highlight color. I've got a bunch of paint at the end of that. I'm just going to touch and lift. But I want to leave some dark spaces. I want to leave some dark spaces, so don't lose those. Put a little bit more in here. I'm just going to get those to even come across, get them into the waterfall. Okay. So now our next step will be to come down, come over into this section here. I'm going to take my fan brush once again. I'm going to load it up with a dark. That's a little bit of dark sienna, some Van Dyke, little midnight black, just a dark. And I'm going to come up the top here. And you can decide where yours is going to be, but I'm going to come up here and bring this more pressure as I get to the bottom. Put in a nice big fat pine tree. Okay. Clean the brush. I'm going to switch to my palette knife, and we're going to get this highlighted. So I'm going to come across, grab some titanium white, put it over here with my browns, a bit of red in there. I'm going to cut across and just start touching and pulling. I'm barely touching the canvas. Just little rolls of paint. Come all the way down, keep coming. Touch and pull out. More highlight on here. If you give them a little bit of a circular pull, it looks a little more textured. Add a little bit of crimson to it. And a little bit of blue. Blue is a good shadow color for reflected light. So we'll set this palette down for a moment so I can clean my palette knife. I'm going to come in with my nice liner brush, and we're going to make a dark using, that's like ink, very thin. We're dipping into our odorless paint thinner. This brush holds a lot of paint, so you can just roll it around there. And then we're going to start suggesting some nice limbs. It has to be super thin. Come over here. And as I said, you can make as many of these as you wish. Okay. Okay, so we have those on there. We have some nice limbs on our pines. So I'm going to come back with my fan brush, clean it up a little bit. And then we're going to load the fan brush up with some darks. I'm loading up with some darks. And I'm just going to kind of scribble in, which will be some leaf. We'll highlight these in a minute. But we want to put the dark down so we can put some light on top of it. Okay, so we have our darks. I'm going to clean that brush out again. And we'll come back in here we'll grab some of this liquid white that's over here. Some of our green. Got a little blue to it. Our green. Prussian blue. We'll just give those some nice highlights. We don't want to lose all the darks. And a little bit to the foreground. Okay, so we have our sky, we have our trees in here. We'll take our palette knife. I'm going to lift up the palette knife. Let me come back in here for a moment. I'm going to come up here and just lift up a few little indications. Some small tree twigs or trunks. So I'm going to now think about that bottom portion that we have. So I'm going to come toward the bottom here, thinking about this should be probably water in the bottom part here. So I'm going to clean up my fan brush. Come back. We'll just we'll indicate some water down here. we indicate that this maybe be a little creek that's got a little stream that's coming down. We're just using the end of our fan brush. As I said, this is like a little creek, a little waterfall that we'd have in upper Michigan, Grayling, Michigan, up in that area outside of Mackinac City, the nice woods that they have up there. So let me ground down in this section some darks, and we'll put in a little bit of a rock formation down there too. Build some nice rocks. Then I'll come in here with some highlight color with some white. I've got some white with dark sienna, marbly. And we'll just kind of suggest some rocks, stones that would be over here. Okay. Now we'll come back with this is a round brush, but you can do it with a flat brush too. 1-inch flat brush. We'll hit our yellows and our greens. I just want to kind of seal I'm going to seal those trees in. Come over here. We're just punching in some colors. We don't want to. We want to think trees and bushes. We don't want to just cover everything up. We want some nice layers. And we'll come and we'll take our this is what they call filbert brush. I'm going to take a little more titanium white. And I'm going to load the brush up with some darks. I'm pulling the dark out. And then I'm going to just drag it one side through the white. So I have white on one side and I have dark on the other. So I'm going to come over here with the side. I'm going to come on the bank with the side of the brush and just make some nice stones. Maybe the one that's in the water. I'm in the water. Put a few over here. Over here. One over here. A couple more over here. We'll set that down and then we'll come back with our round brush. And we'll just put a few more pieces of foliage on top of those rocks. Then we'll come back with our palette knife, put a couple lines in here. We just want to suggest a connection. And we're just really, with this, we're really just pushing that back a little bit. Pushing the waterfall, everything back. Come back here, we'll just tap a little bit of color into it. Okay. We'll take our liner brush. dip in our red just to get a little bit of color. A little bit of color over that waterfall. And we can dab a few more, just hints of color into that. Okay. All right. So we've got our waterfall. We have it splashed over here. We have our rocks. Let's take this tape off and see what it looks like. Grab our tape on that side. Come off the top. Sometimes this tape, when you get the paint on it, sticks a little bit fussy. Okay. So there we have a nice Michigan waterfall, a nice trip up into the Upper Peninsula that we can take without leaving our home. So I hope you enjoyed this one. My name is Robert. Remember, we do paintings every week. We have a new painting up here. We're going to have another watercolor coming up very soon, and we'll get into a fall painting. Probably the next one will be some fall paintings with a Bob Ross and also with some watercolors. But I hope you enjoyed this one, and tell your friends to download it. And I hope to see you soon. Thank you.